We have gone into some detail about the many features of SAP software, and more importantly, how they function. Now it's time to take a look at the overarching infrastructure that is the SAP system itself. Before you begin working within an SAP system, it's good to have some background knowledge. There are some basic settings and orientation regarding SAP that will form the very foundation of your daily tasks. If you're working in a specific department, you must be able to provide input to SAP for which area of business a specific transaction is performed. In order for this to occur, you must know something about your organizational units. Every enterprise has its own structure. The structure of an organization reflects the workflow and business processes and are usually captured within an organizational chart or similar capture document. However, we all know that there are occasions when not all levels of functional areas are captured or presented within the overall organizational chart. Therefore, many enterprises decide to present org charts for specific functional areas. For example, one chart would capture all the processes for logistics, and another for purchasing, accounting, and so on. The following is an example of an organizational chart that represents units within the logistics area. The Client 400 represents corporate headquarters. Below headquarters are units that represent subsidiary companies that may be located in different countries or within the same state. In the case of company code 0001, there are two production plants, Plant 1000 and Plant 1100. However, the chart shows only one production plant for company code 0002. Notice that each of the plant locations have corresponding storage locations at the bottom of the chart. Now let's take a more detailed look at how you might interact with these units once you're inside SAP. First, let's start with the client. You are required to enter or select a client when you first log in to an SAP system. Since the client represents the enterprise as shown here, that means that any changes made at this level correspondingly apply to all the organizational units below it. The client data field always uses a 3-digit numeric identifier, for example 300. Next, you have the company code organizational unit. This is where accounting functionality is mapped in SAP. A client can contain various company codes, but they are uniquely identified throughout the enterprise. The company code data field uses a 4-digit alphanumeric identifier. Next in line is the plant unit. Here is where goods and services emerge, making the plant level a central organizational unit in the logistics process. A plant can be absorbed with activity that includes production, sales, inventory and shipping. All the things that make an enterprise go. In SAP, a plant can only be assigned to one company code and only once. The data entry for this field is a 4-digit alphanumeric identifier. Next, we have the storage locations. Generally, these sit at the bottom of the logistics organizational chart, but it doesn't make them any less critical to the process. The storage locations allow you to differentiate material stocks within a plant by managing inventory. A storage location is directly assigned to a plant and has a 4-digit alphanumeric identifier. Master data can be viewed as the resource pool by which you draw from in order to perform tasks, execute transactions, and conduct business. Once master data has been created, it's available throughout the SAP system and can be accessed by anyone with the necessary authorizations. For example, a master record can be a customer's address, or specifications on a material. Master data plays a critical role during the SAP implementation and in daily work tasks because it warehouses all of the critical data needed to perform transactions. SAP offers several solutions in which to attack managing enterprise master data. Because undoubtedly many applications and thousands of users will have access to the same master data, dependent upon the required authorizations and roles of course, redundancies are avoided through proper handling of master data management. The only instance by which such redundancies cannot be avoided is when systems of different manufacturers are deployed within the same enterprise. It should be noted that unlike transactional data, which can be changed, master data is the backbone of performing many transactions within SAP and therefore should be entered with an elevated and heightened sense of care and diligence. You should always remember that virtually all business processes in the system at some point access master data. One error can result in a chain reaction of errors and implications. Are you ready to navigate the system? The previous lessons provided basic knowledge of the SAP system and described organizational structures and master data. In this section, you'll learn a little bit about logging on to the SAP system itself and its interface. This section will cover the following key topics: connecting with the server using the SAP logon, an explanation and description of the SAP screen interface, how to log on and log off from the SAP system, and finally, we will examine the status bar information. Let's now take a look at how we log on to an SAP system. The system establishes a connection between your PC and the server via a network. There are a few steps that must be completed to establish this connection. Now, as you are probably aware, most people have several links to frequently used applications visible on their desktops. Once your SAP system administrator completes the installation of the SAP GUI, you'll see the SAP logon icon on your desktop, and this is the key to your SAP connection and ultimately the SAP system itself. To begin this process, you must double-click on the SAP logon icon on your desktop or go to your Windows Start menu and select Start, Programs, SAP Front End, and then choose the SAP Logon option. This will result in the SAP Logon pad being loaded as shown in the slide. From there, you need to select one of the pre-configured SAP systems on the System tab and click the Logon button. If the Logon screen is displayed, it means your connection to the SAP system has been established. It is important to note that most enterprises deploy several SAP systems other than the one you may utilize on a daily basis. These systems are deployed for development purposes, being a sandbox where you can play around and test things out, and also for testing purposes. The initial logon onto an SAP client requires a few separate steps once a server-client connection is established. Here you must depend upon your system administrator to provide you with the three critical data elements. These are the client number, your username, and your password. The language field that you see on the screen is normally set for you by default, but if not, just key in the language code. For English, this would just be EN. The client is a mandatory 3-digit numeric key. Now your user account is client dependent. For example, if you wanted to log on to an SAP development or test client, it would require an entirely different client key and possibly a different user account and password. As an enterprise may have several clients set up for various reasons, as previously mentioned, Additionally, there are specific password rules that may have been implemented in your SAP system. Quite often, SAP systems are implemented with password rules that you must abide by. These rules are such things as you can use letters, numbers, and special characters. Passwords must have a length between 3 and 40 characters. A standard system requires a minimum length of 6 by default. First, characters cannot be an exclamation or question mark. The first 3 characters must be different from the username and must not be 3 identical characters. The first 3 characters cannot contain a blank space. Passwords cannot use SAP or pass. These have been reserved for SAP themselves. And passwords must differ from the previous 5 passwords that you have used before. Upon your initial logon, the SAP system will prompt you immediately to change your password unless specifically configured not to do so. This is done to let you, the user, utilize a password you're more familiar with, rather than the one generated by your SAP system administrator. As you can see here, you are required to enter the password twice using the rules previously defined. The SAP GUI is the user interface you work within. This menu, known as the SAP Easy Access menu, is used to navigate the areas of the system you are assigned to perform tasks in. The SAP screen contains many buttons and fields, and the following section is going to detail some of these various areas of the SAP user interface that will help you better orient yourself to SAP. Use your mouse to hover over elements on the screen to see their description. You can see at the top of the screen we have the menu bar, and it includes items such as menu, edit, favorites, extras, systems, and help. The menu bar can be used to perform administrative and functional activities. These items can change, with the exception of the system and help items, which are always visible. And some of the most commonly used features of the menu bar include adding favorites and navigation. Next, we have the standard toolbar. This toolbar is located directly below the menu bar. It contains icons for executing the most important functions in SAP, such as save and execute. The icons are contained on every SAP screen, with inactive icons grayed out and inaccessible. If you hover over each icon, a brief description is provided for its function. Then we have the enter icon. This confirms entered data and is also used to progress screens. For example, go to the next screen. Then we have the save icon, which saves changes. We have the back icon, which allows us to navigate to the previous screen. We have the exit icon, which closes our current transaction and does not save data. We have the cancel icon, and this cancels a transaction, but we may remain within the same screen. We can see we've got a print icon, which is used to print a document, a report, or a list. And then we have a search icon, which is used to find data values. And then the next one is called a session icon, and this is used to open a new window, and this means you can have several SAP sessions all open at the same time. We then have a title bar. Now the title bar indicates the structure of the transaction you're currently engaged in. If you're executing a transaction for an activity in production, the title bar will represent this transaction. Likewise, if it's a procurement activity, it will represent a procurement transaction. Then we get the command field. The command field is used to enter transaction codes directly into the system to enable you to navigate the system without using the menu tree. This feature is used for frequent users who no longer need to navigate the menu to find transaction codes they need to execute. If you know the transaction code, you can just key it directly into this command field and press enter. Then lastly, we have the status bar. Now the status bar is located at the very bottom of the screen and displays system information, warnings, errors, and gives us activity feedback. The status provides you with data that shows the system, the client, the username, the program, and the transaction code you're currently engaged in. It also provides system messages upon the completion of transactional tasks. There are two ways to terminate your SAP session, so let's look at a few quick options to get you out of the system. One way to do it is to click the Close menu item located in the upper left corner of your screen, or you can select Alt and the F4 key. From here, you'll see a pop-up screen asking you to confirm your decision to log off, informing you that any unsaved data will be lost. Clicking Yes here will terminate your session. Another way to log off is to click the X Close icon located at the right corner of your screen. Again, the pop-up confirmation screen should appear with the same options as before. The message that unsaved data will be lost is displayed at every log-off for security purposes. As you'll continue to learn, SAP is almost like a world of its own. As you begin to navigate through the system and all of its amazing functionality, you will see exactly why it is the premier ERP application on the market today.